in African countries and have white characters don't do is that Richard isn't the savior. Richard is full of uncertainties in a way that if you sort of look at, and there's a history, so if you sort of look at Graham Greene's work or sort of Englishman in Africa, they're not like Richard. They're often sort of in control of their fates in a way that Richard isn't. But what I wanted to do with Richard really was, and Richard is a character I loved very much. And, you know, I wanted Richard to be this character who has issues from his own life, but then they sort of manifest themselves in Nigeria. And Olanna, of course, being this educated Nigerian who's aware of the dynamics of race in a way that maybe Ubu isn't, Ubu being the houseboy. And I'm very interested in race. I'm interested in how race isn't, race isn't about the color of our skin. Race is about historical baggage, and race is about assumptions that come with it. And so, but also it's complicated because I sometimes think it's too easy. Richard did have the privilege of being a white man, but he also had minuses. Life wasn't perfect for him. And, I have English people who write and say, why did you have Richard be impotent? Are you trying to say something about the British? And I think, no, he was just impotent, right? I'm not trying to make any, this is not a metaphor for anything. He just had, issues. And, yeah, so I
must say that when I read that, I saw that it's almost putting aside the otherness by making him such a flawed character as well. I thought that had created a beautiful balance of that initially otherness that actually became absolutely subverted at the end.
This is a man who becomes more Biafran than many Biafrans, right? Whose loyalty to the cause is actually greater than the loyalty of people who in some ways saw Biafra as their birthright, right? But Richard then in some ways sort of embraces it more than they do. And Richard, the idea for Richard came from, I had read Frederick Forsyth's book about the Biafran War. Frederick Forsyth had been in Biafra for a number of years, had first gone as a BBC war correspondent, and then became disillusioned with the BBC because he felt that he was being censored, and that a lot of his reporting wasn't, that they wanted to shape the story in a particular way. And he, at this time, I think, had sort of fallen in love with the Biafran cause and felt that the BBC wasn't being fair to Biafran. And so Frederick Forsyth left the BBC and became sort of an independent reporter in Biafra, and then became very close to the Biafran leader in ways that I find troubling, because I think that it really affected the way that he wrote about the war. So he wrote this book about Biafra. He also wrote a book about Ojukwu, the Biafran leader. But the passion of it, I found it very, there's a lot that's very useful in my research reading that book, but also he, I think, had, like Barack Obama says, he had really drunk the Kool-Aid of Ojukwu. So he just saw nothing wrong and nothing to criticize. Ojukwu was this messiah who had descended from heaven. And I was struck by that. And you sort of read the books by Biafrans about the war, and it doesn't have that, because they knew that Ojukwu was not the messiah. And so I was really struck by that, and I think the idea for Richard came from reading about Frederick Forsyth. And also, I had read I was very interested in the idea of the foreign reporter who's reporting war and the complications of it. The people who come in and take these photographs, which then end up being in Life magazine and in the New York Times, and they make their careers from it. But there's also a sense in which, there's something very complicated about it, because they do that and they leave. And those poor starving children are still poor and starving. And, so I've just found myself really interested in that.